before we break for the summer. So wish everyone a great summer and some time away from official council duties anyways. We have first on our agenda tonight a moment of reflection before we get into the approval of the agendas. We'll start with that moment of reflection now. All right, thank you very much. Moving into the consent agenda, we have a number of information items there, some minutes, payable list, committee reports, motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, unless someone wants to poll. Councillor Fox makes the motion. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to the regular meeting agenda, of which I've heard of no additional items or changes. We did move around a little bit the delegations, but otherwise the agenda is there. So motion to approve the agenda as presented. Councillor Fox makes the motion. Call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And for the good of council, anyone have something they wish to share with the whole council? It's definitely been a hot week and a little bit, so Councillor Fox.
A couple weeks ago, we welcomed the Pro Rodeo back in town. On behalf of the Ag Society, I just want to say thank you to all of our sponsors and all of our volunteers. We couldn't have ran the rodeo without any of you. We figure our totals for over the 3 days, we saw approximately 3,500 people. I don't know, weather was decent, it cooperated, the concert was good on Friday, so it was well attended.
Anyone else? Councillor Monteith?
I do, but I just wanted to ask Christine a question. Does that attendance cover your costs?
I haven't seen those numbers yet.
Okay, and another matter, just a reminder that we have the, what do they call it now, under 17 or whatever. In my day, it was Senior Little League. That was easier to remember. It starts Friday at 9, Miranda. And there's, I think, 6 teams. Winner of that then plays the championship from Eastern Canada on the 23rd. And for the Canadian Championship, and the rights, I presume, to still go to the World Series somewhere down the States, I think Florida. The opener for our local team is, I think, 6 o'clock, but the opening ceremonies are 5:30 at Westwinds. So it'd be good to have a good crowd for the kids. It's been a long time since we've had a big tournament here, probably, other than the American Legion, it's probably 1992 when we last hosted the Canadians, so we should take advantage of this.
That's super exciting. Nicely done. Anyone else? I do want to share that on Saturday I was happy to be able to give greetings on behalf of the town before the triathlon started in Fort Macleod, and I believe they had a sold-out attendance with nearly 350 people attending, and a lot of youth, a lot of people participating with the Olympic, the sprint, super sprint, youth. And to see everyone out there volunteering and cheering each other on is always really cool, really good to see. So, yeah. And then I also did attend an ACCO event at Spruce Meadows July 3rd in the evening, which was an opportunity just to, they invite all their municipal partners, and it was an opportunity to meet with our South ACCO rep and had a few other conversations with some of the other municipalities. So it was a good event to attend. Anyone else have something they wish to share? Councillor Poitras?
You bet. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Mayor Fader, for coming out and doing the introduction at the triathlon. And Councillor Orr was there volunteering as well. And Councillor Patel had his son participated in the triathlon. He did awesome. So yeah, it was, as far as the race goes, it was a great day. We had, like you said, over 350 participants. That was our biggest triathlon to date yet. It was great watching everybody compete. And again, a big thank you out to all the organizers, to the volunteers and our sponsors that made it happen. Sadly, our race was touched by tragedy this year. One of our racers suffered a medical emergency and subsequently passed away later at the hospital. So out of respect for their family, for their privacy and, notifying next of kin, I won't go into any more details on that, but I just wanted to express heartfelt condolences to their family, as well as a great appreciation for our volunteers and the medical professionals who, for their efforts that day. So, yeah.
All right. Councillor Ward?
Of course, we join in and offer our condolences to the family. Looking at my calendar, I realize that this is our first meeting since the July 1st celebration that was held at the fort. And that was a very successful event. And we'd like to pass on thanks and congratulations to the fort executive director and the staff and everyone who attended. It was well attended and again, kind of a tradition that continues, and we're grateful for that.
And one other quick note with Alberta Munis, I did complete our 4-meeting committee meeting with the Finance and Economy Committee on Friday. So that concludes my committee meeting there until if and when we are reappointed to that committee. So definitely was a good opportunity to provide some feedback and ideas to the Finance Committee meeting of Alberta municipalities. Any other thoughts? No. If there's no other thoughts for the good of council, then we are going to move on to unfinished business, of which we want to start with bylaw 2024. And we'll ask our Director of Community Services to introduce bylaw 2024.
Thank you and good evening, Council. On July 27th special council meeting, we did review with council and pass first reading of bylaw 2024, which is the Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Tonight, we are asking council for second and third reading of the bylaw. This bylaw is a bylaw for the town of Fort Macleod in the province of Alberta for the purpose of establishing the administrative function and set fees in relation to the Access to Information Act and the Protection of Privacy Act. Alberta experienced a repeal of the Freedom of Information Act in 2025 and has since been replaced with the two new acts, the Protection of Privacy Act, along with the Access to Information Act. And so POPA, as they call it, establishes privacy rights for Albertans concerning personal information. It also permits public bodies to collect, use, or disclose personal information in new ways, including data matching and to create non-personal data. The ATIA establishes rights for people to access records as defined in that act that are also in custody and control of public bodies subject to limited and specific exceptions. This bylaw is required under this new legislation, and we are required to have this in place, as well as the privacy management program, which we will be discussing next. So again, we're looking for a second and third reading of this bylaw, and then it'll come into force. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would request a motion now from council for first reading or second reading of bylaw 2024 as per the recommendation. Councillor Patience makes the motion. Is there any further questions for administration on bylaw 2024? Councillor Monteith.
I'm just wondering how much of this is new and how much is existing, because I'm going to rant now, I'm warning you. what happened to red tape? And why do we always have to change everything just because they think it's better? Like, it just strikes me as a lot of useless effort. Also, they're requiring us to follow this, yet they don't seem to be following their own when we have a massive data breach, which makes us look like non-existent. So that's just personal bias against this.
I don't know if there's feedback or question you look for. I think mostly the first part is how much is changing from what we had before in the bylaw.
Yeah, the previous bylaw, the FOIP bylaw, was quite specific, whereas this bylaw, it just refers a lot back to the act, so it's not laid out quite. The two programs, as much as they've been separated, they do incorporate a lot of the same principles and functions of that FOIP Act. They've just really been separated between the personal information piece and then the public information and accessing that information and how you protect that information. So that's where we're seeing the most difference anyways, is between the separation of the access to and then the collection of.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion, debates regarding, I think there's a lot of fees built into the policy around when someone needs some information and so on and so forth. Do you see it being an enormous amount of more work for the administration?
I don't anticipate the number of requests that we're going to get to increase. And when we had discussed it before, I didn't figure I'd had more than 20 in the last 10-ish years. So I'm hopeful that it'll stay along those lines.
Sure.
There's a lot more work about the collection of our data and the public data that we collect and how we maintain and secure that data. That's where we're going to see the large amounts of work, not so much for the access to information piece, but the collection of data and how we're using that data and then protecting that information.
All right. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, debate? Seeing none, we'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. I'd request a motion then for third reading of bylaw 2024. Councillor Fox makes the motion. Any further debate, discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to administrative policy, privacy management, and again, we'll ask our Director of Community Services to introduce this policy.
Thank you. This privacy management program falls directly into the bylaw 2024, and we were legislated to also create this program. And this is where we talk about the information that we're collecting, how we're maintaining it, the safety of it, the security of it, how we're using information that we're collecting, and then disclosing that as well to people as they provide that information to us. So some of the key purposes of a PMP, it's to promote accountability by establishing clear roles, responsibilities, and processes for managing those privacy risks, to foster trust with Albertans, employees, and partners by demonstrating a commitment to privacy, specify safeguards to protect that personal information and data derived from personal information as well as non-personal information, enable risk management tools to identify, assess, and mitigate those policy risks proactively, support business objectives by integrating privacy into business operations and enabling innovation while respecting individuals' rights. This is the program that we are going to see a little bit more work administratively, especially over the next 6 months as we start reviewing all of our forms and applications and start adding statements and assigning levels of risk to items, forms. We do have that process outlined within this policy as to identifying certain risks with certain information and how we're going to mitigate that. So those are all things that we'll be working on in the next 6-ish months. I'm hoping not too much longer than that, but that's on the calendar for the next, but we have to start with this program. So we are asking for council's final approval on this tonight.
All right, I will request then a motion from council for the approval of the policy as presented and recommended. Councillor Orr makes the motion. Questions? Any questions for administration? Councillor Monteith?
How much is written by administration and how much is handed down by the government in terms of the wording, what needs to be included, etc.?
We actually had ours drawn up by our legal, but in review of other municipalities' policies, we're quite on par with them. There is a lot of legalese kind of terms, and it is directly related to the act itself, so hopefully we can, as administration, understand it, but we also want it to be understandable and accessible to our residents, so I'm hopeful that that's the case. If not, they're more than welcome to call, and we'll do our best to walk them through it if there's questions.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Anyone else? Councillor Patience?
There we go. At least I'm curious, like, what impact does this have on day-to-day operations? For instance, information collected on development permits or tax certificate requests or those kind of things. Like, what is the day-to-day impact of this?
The information collected shouldn't change. It's more the way that we store it, staff have access to it, and then disclosing why we're collecting that information. That's one of the biggest pieces, is adding those statements onto all of our forms and applications, outlining to the public why that information is being gathered, and then what it can be used for. So if it's not disclosed on a certain form or application to be used for decision making or data collection or anything like that, we may not be able to use that information if we're looking at surveying somebody or looking at our past development permits to determine something. We may not be able to do that. So we are looking at adding those statements to make sure that we can use that information appropriately. And then of course its storage and everything is day to day, not going to be too much. It's about more staff access, and just because you work for the town doesn't mean you have access to every department's information. It is limited, and that will be monitored and make sure that all the staff know kind of what their limits are.
Anyone else? It's a big policy, a lot of stuff in there. So for example, business license application would have a disclaimer on what information would be used for what when people are filling in their forms.
Yes, correct. Even animal licensing, any application form that comes into town, lease agreements, that type of thing, any personal information, identifiable information, that's the type of information that we have to disclose and note how it's going to be used, and then we have to protect it as our policy says.
All right. Any other comments, questions, debates? Motion is on the floor to approve the policy as presented. If there's no further discussion or debate, I will call a motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to new business, which we have McLeod Landing, and we'll ask our Director of Operations to introduce this request.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So the recommendation, should there be no objection, that Council approves pulling ahead $1.3 million from the 2027 McLeod Landing Phase 3 budget to the 2026 McLeod Landing budget. And this is in order to start the construction phase and support completion schedule for the end of summer in 2027. So just a little bit of background. In 2020, or in the 2026 budget, we had put monies away for Phase 3, primarily to do the engineering work, to make sure that we knew what we were getting into, to lay out the different sections of land, those kinds of things, and to help firm up the numbers that we had that it would take to do the construction. So going along those lines, with council, we have established the final plans for Phase 3. And so that is in place as well, working with our engineers. We have looked at some initial tender processes as far as the shallow utilities, which we knew was a long range item, which takes about a year from commitment to the end and completion for those shallow utilities. And so we did get some better numbers there, looking at around $450,000 to complete those shallows. So at this point, to secure the work and to try and have everything completed kind of in the August timeframe of 2027, we're looking to start some of that construction work in 2026. which we hadn't put the money into previously. So that's why we're trying to pull that money forward. Essentially, what we're looking at is the construction of the deep utilities and a bunch of the civil work to get the grading and stuff done for the roads. And then in 2027 early, then we'll finish the surface works, which includes the road, the hard surface with the concrete and sidewalks, in which place, once those are done, that's where the shallow utilities can come in. So then that'll give us that kind of timeline. So that's the recommendation. Just some other details. So again, looking at what we had in the budget, we had about 320,000 set out in 2026 to do the work. We would like to pull more money from the 2027 budget as well. We do have numbers for the shallow utilities, which we've added to the whole project. Some of the money, like I said, would be going to the construction of the deep utilities and the civil work, but also securing the work for the shallow utilities for them to start working on the drawings, organizing the different parties like with Fortis and ATCO and those kinds of things, as well as communications. The fund allocation, so the 1.3 that we're looking to pull forward, 1 million of that will be coming from land sale management reserve and 300,000 from the multi-year project reserve. As we discussed with council, there is no, or we decided not to go with debentures on this project. So the funding would be through those land sales and management reserves. We also have in the package some land sale projections. So just looking at the project overall, as kind of a comparison to what we're spending and what we're pulling out. So again, looking at some of the details of those properties, including the additional ones that we put on the larger parcel on the north side, and bringing those out, we are looking at around the 3.9 million as far as the land sales. Yeah, and if there's any details or any questions, then I can try and answer those.
Very good. Thank you very much. I will start with asking for a motion from council to proceed as per the recommendation. If anyone's prepared to make the motion, Councillor Fox makes the motion as per the recommendation. Questions for administration regarding what's been presented? Councillor Orr.
Could you just clarify in the details you speak of an additional 440 million? 440 million, yeah, that would be a lot. 440K. Was that an anticipated amount? Was this a surprise? Were we estimating approximately this amount? Could you just give a little more background as to where we were at prior to this determination of needing a 440?
Yeah, so the original quotes that we had from engineering, we knew there would be an additional amount for the shallow utilities. We didn't have a number associated with that. So that's why this full amount and going through the tender process brought out that 440,000. So that's what's been added to that wasn't originally put on the project. I potentially could have had an estimate in there. There actually was quite a varied amount that came through when we did go through the tender process. So this wasn't a known number, and that's where it came from.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor Monteith.
I know you can't answer this, but every time we've done these projects, it's come in less than what we budgeted. Do you anticipate that's going to happen this time?
I would be cautious with that, but we are working with the base numbers from our engineers, and we have found them to be conservative. So we are looking at options. We are looking through the tender process to still refine these numbers. They're still estimates on what we're looking at, but that probably doesn't answer your question, but that's where we're getting our numbers from.
Well, I'm just an optimistic type of guy.
Especially when it comes to government. Councillor Patience.
Yeah, this one's maybe for our finance officer. Chris, were we going to pull money from our multi-projects reserve for this in our capital budget? And how does this shift affect our budget?
So we were going to use our multi-year capital reserve currently for 10th Street. 10th Street project. That was, we were saving that money, saving that money, saving that money. It's going to 10th Street for the infrastructure project there. So the money that we're pulling from it, we would have to refill that reserve at year end when we're pushing out our surplus this year based on our land sales. So we just have to bring that back into that reserve so that we have enough in there for the 10th Street project, which is on the books for 2027 also.
Any other thoughts, questions, debates? The motion is on the floor to accept the recommendation to move funding forward. Any other thoughts or questions before we go to a vote? Seeing none, we'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to item 2 in new business, Alberta Development Officers Week, and we'll ask our Director of Operations, Brendan Orr, to present the proclamation.
Thank you. So this, should there be no objections, resting that the Mayor and Council proclaim September 15th to September 18th, 2026 to be Alberta Development Officers Week, according to the proclamation from the Alberta Development Officers Association. So this is an annual recognition of the town of Fort Macleod's development officer and the work that she does for the municipality. Just some details. So Kelly has been working in this position for quite some time for the town of Fort Macleod. Just highlighting some of the thoughts that I had. She does have great respect among administration as well as residents for her knowledge, her organization. And I think her approach to individuals and looking at conditions and trying to work out solutions, as well as their forethought and working with like our planners to make sure that we're not setting precedents, that we're making sure that we're following things that we can maintain into the future. She also works very well with many government organizations, as well as with administration and council to ensure we're organized and dealing with the details, and there's a lot of details that she works with. I guess just one thing, kind of on a personal note, I have seen her on several occasions when people come in. Sometimes the processes can be really frustrating to get permits, to get all those things organized, to have the right information. And I know that she takes the time to bring people in, explain what the process is, and help them through that process. So, yep, just think that this is a good time to recognize the amount of work and the things that go on to support the town and their development.
Very good. A motion from council as per the recommendation. Anyone wishing? Councillor Patel makes the motion. And this is for the week of September 15 to 18, so it's not current, but we look forward to supporting the proclamation when it comes to that date too. Councillor Fox.
Just to make you aware, Miranda, the recommendation says September 15th to 18th. However, the letter states September 14th to 18th. So I'm not sure which one it's supposed to be.
Sounds very good. The motion's on the floor. Any further discussion, comments? If not, call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to administrative reports, of which we have a number, and I believe based on how we did things last time, our CEO would like to see his team go first. But did you want to introduce anything before we get started? And then you can pass it off to your team. See over that.
Nothing too specific. Just another great quarter with our team. I feel like things are really starting to get into the full swing. With Daniela and Brendan now, over a year of experience and kind of taking those positions well, and the rest of our team supporting them and continuing on the great work that they do. So yeah, with that, we can start with Lisa.
Thank you. Two of the things that I wanted to just kind of highlight was the busyness of our community and the events that happen. I was working on 3 community and special events permits that were approved for the last quarter, and then I have the Junior Royals tournament. Actually, there might not be the Junior Royals, they're the Little League. Now that I see that in here. Anyway, so we're working on that one as well. That's coming up. That's been approved and is going forward. And then we have 2 more in progress as well for the South Country Fair and then the Taste of Fort Macleod. So there's lots that happens in our community, and I think we're very blessed to have a busy community. And these aren't town events that the town is hosting. They're hosted by other groups and organizations. So yeah, I think we're very fortunate in our small town to have people willing to host these for us. And then I just wanted to highlight also that the TNR program that I did speak about for the bylaw enforcement piece, that is rolling out at the end of this month. Communications have started to go out. We've been in contact with the vet clinics, and then our bylaw officer has determined the first locations that we're going to work with, and then we'll see how it goes and report back to council. So thank you.
Very good. Any questions for Lisa on her report, Councillor?
I had a question. I appreciate the information that's given regarding Q2 bylaw enforcement summary, 141 bylaw calls and the breakdown there. That's appreciated. It's not surprising that it's nice to look at trends or comparisons. And I know that these are seasonal, so to compare to the last quarter isn't going to be very useful. But are we in a position where we can start to compare to last year's second quarter and start to compare things that way? I'm just wondering about just some comparison graphs.
I can certainly ask Steve to pull those historic numbers and to do a comparative, sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, very good. I just noticed the water utility bylaw is the one that's got a lot of attention right now. So I don't know if we need to... I'm sure the town has already, right? It's just everyone wanting to figure out their water sprinklers and getting them running proper. So, all right. If there's no other comments for our Director of Community Services, Economic Development.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. This past quarter, we received a grant for $24,900 from the Ministry of Jobs, Economy, Trade, and Immigration. That was through the NRED program that we applied to last fall. That's the Northern and Regional Economic Development Program. And we received this grant for our airport master plan. So we put the project out to tender, and we awarded it to HM Aero Consultants. And we've already started working with them, and everything's going great. So we're expecting the final master plan to be complete later this year. One more thing, if you visited our airport lately, you may have noticed a new fuel tank. So that's from West Winds Air Spray. They've set up a fuel tank as we previously discussed, and they're offering Jet A fuel for sale for airport operators. So pilots who are using Fort Macleod Airport can access fuel now through West Winds Air Spray. Thank you.
Oh, that's very good. The only thought I was thinking on the jet fuel is, will they report on how much it's getting used outside of their own use?
Yeah, we've asked them to provide us with some of that information once they have it. They're still awaiting their final inspection.
Okay.
And then once the fuel tank's inspected, then we can update it. I think it's on NAV Canada, the website, and that essentially lets all pilots know that you can purchase fuel at Fort Macleod Airport. So once that's happening, then we'll start getting those updates from them.
Okay. Any other questions for Economic Development Coordinator? Yeah, Councillor Patience.
Yeah, just a brief one, Dan. Under economic development, you see we have 4 commercial lots available plus 1 hotel site. I'm just curious where the hotel site was.
So the hotel site is right beside the railway track. So I guess when you enter McLeod Landing, it's on your right-hand side.
Any other thoughts, questions, clarification? Seeing none, we want to thank you for that. And on to finance.
Thank you. Highlight. You know, we got the taxes out. Taxes are out. We applied the 11% penalty on anything that wasn't paid, so that process starts. The only other thing I wanted to bring to council's attention in our 2024 management letter from the auditors, they mentioned that our land inventory needed to be reconciled because sometimes we'd sell a little piece of land and wouldn't be on any of my lists. And I was like, I don't know, just throw it in there. So I did it. I reconciled the land inventory for the town of Fort Macleod. So every single piece of land, whether it is for sale, whether it is a parking lot owned by the town, whether it is a public utility lot or municipal reserve, it is recorded in one of my spreadsheets. So I'm feeling quite happy about that. A little bit less worried that I'm going to miss something at some point, and that's good. We're good for the future. Other than that, summer is here, so we are, my clerks are camping, and I am trying to hold down the fort at the front office. So I wish everybody a great summer.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Councillor Patience.
Chris, in your report, you say that we're preparing for the transition from E360 to Waste Connections for the town's recycling contractor under the Extended Producer Responsibility Initiative, right? Does that have any impact on pickup dates for residents, businesses, any difference to the service provided by the municipality with that transition?
So Brennan's going to be bringing some information to council regarding the entire program and the changes that are coming to the town residents. So I'll let Brennan maybe jump on that one.
Yeah, there will be some changes. I think the one that they have told us about as far as collection is that the residential recycling will all be collected on one day, but it will still be, and I think it will be a Thursday, and that will cover the whole town. So I will be doing a full report as we get some more information. We just received information on who would actually be doing that service for us. And so as we look at that, as we get more information, there will be a whole bunch of communications going out to residents, to them individually, as well as the town supporting with our own ways of communication to make sure that there's understanding of how that change is going to happen. We don't have a lot of details yet, and this will be taking place in October. And so we have some time, but we are prepping on that.
CEO Burdett.
I just wanted to ask council whether or not everyone's feeling comfortable in their understanding of the extended producer responsibility. I know Brennan will get into that a little bit more, but whether or not we needed to give a little bit of a summary just for all the viewers at home.
It might be a good idea, just the why behind the change or transition, just so we have an understanding, high level.
Yeah, so at a high level, there's a government initiative to put more of the cost for recycling back on the producers of those materials. So what they're doing is kind of simplistically, if you're recycling some cardboard, and that came from Amazon, then they'll push some of that cost back onto Amazon to recycle that material. So they're encouraging those that are producing the materials to reduce or to figure out better ways on how to make that cycle happen. So as part of that, the town is moving into this area where the government will be taking over part of the personal recycling. And so that will be taken essentially out of the hands of the municipality, and they'll be managing that more on a larger scale in order to weigh and track those recyclable resources, and to apply that charge back on to those that are producing it, if that makes sense.
Okay, Councillor Monteith.
How are they going to determine how many boxes Amazon is in there? Like that strikes me as fairly difficult. I've always one of them. And just as a side note, I was reading, I think City of Edmonton has hired some inspectors to go through the green boxes to determine if people are putting the proper things in there. So are we really going to be going through people's garbage?
So again, that will be taken essentially out of the hands of the municipality. We have seen that they are increasing the number of items and types of items that we can recycle. And so there is a broader range. The actual organizing and sorting will be happening on a larger scale. So again, this is part of a broader government initiative that I think most communities are already lined up with. I know that the MD is, and we have a depot here where MD residents can come in. So we've already organized that depot, and it's already in process of working with this program. But yeah, sorry, I don't have a lot of those answers and kind of the specifics on how things are going to go. But that is the direction that we've been given to move forward with.
Okay, very good. If there's no other questions, oh, sorry, on finance?
Given your report yet, have you? I'm just wondering, who owns the land that we're working on WA Day?
That is the school division.
Why are we incurring costs, just out of curiosity?
So for that work, we are giving support through equipment and labor. We are not actually incurring any cost besides those items, and that is in support of the community and the school division.
Okay. Oh, very good. And we'll pass it back to you, Brendan, if you want to finish your report.
Sure.
And you can probably read it word for word if you want. And it's a
I
nice
would-
report. Thank you very much.
I would like to do that.
No,
Just
you
on a high level, just starting with safety, and we are focusing still quite a bit on our safety, getting things organized and some transparency on the things that we are doing. We obviously want our employees and our operations to operate safely, and there is certain regulations from OH&S that we are trying to meet with these. So if you do have any questions on the safety program, we can definitely look at those. When looking at projects, just a high-level overview of some of the things that we've been doing so far this year, looking at where we are and some of the completions. Some highlights might be the arena floor, which was poured and should be soon to the 28 days for the full cure. And then we'll be looking at putting on the dasher boards, as well as some work at the 150 Park. The signalization, that intersection is now flashing red and flashing yellow. So we're hoping that residents are aware of that, are using caution around that signalization intersection. And then with the spring community cleanup, so we did have quite an uptick of users of that program. I think there was some good feedback about the flow and the movement at the GR Davis parking lot. So that was good. And then just some highlights with Public Works. We have been moving in quite a few areas. We're talking about the seasonal maintenance, the chipping of a bunch of trees, moving that cost in. Roads and streets, we've already done a bunch of work on some of the paving of roads and the repairs on the streets, as you saw outside Frontier. We are moving in those areas. Plants, we've completed I don't know if they put it in here. Sorry, the reuse of our water. I think it's in there. Sorry, I'm just having trouble seeing it here. But we have seen a great reduction. I think when I was talking to Curtis, and it had only been running for about an hour, but we did see about a 97% reduction in potable water that we were using just by reusing some of our other resources. So that's good. Planning and development, again, kind of a focus on what's been happening there, but lots of information about the sales, permitting and compliance, and a full detail on those things. And then with parks and facilities, just to highlight with the swimming pool, this quarter there was recognition from the Life Saving Society. So the town of Fort Macleod received the Paul Skip Hayden Canadian Swim Patrol Award and the Anne Resick Swim for Life Award, just recognizing our outdoor pool program and for accumulating the highest point total in the Canadian Swim Patrol program and life-saving programs. So just a highlight of some of those things that that we do have available to our residents and that we're trying to push and make available for everyone. And then just finally at the end, just Service Tracker, which is the way that we can track some of our tasks that are brought up, and that can be internally or through residents through our website, that they can bring up any concerns that they have, and then dealing with those things. Again, the biggest one in this quarter was Public Works, with second being waste and recycle collection. But just seeing those items come in and trying to close them out and finish them off.
No, very good. Thank you very much. Any questions for Brennan on his report? Councilor Ora?
Yeah, I actually am seeking some clarification on 3 items. Hang on, it won't be long. If you could just give kind of a high-level overview of the energy consumption trend stemming from our solar panels. How are we doing there? I know there's been discussion in the past that it wasn't quite as good as we had hoped. How are we doing on that front? So that's one. The pathway, the new paved pathway that we have in the Wilderness Park, will there be any additional work done to even out the edges of the pathway on some of those? I know that on the east side of the road, when we had some paving done there, there was some dirt that was brought in to even it up so that the pavement didn't stick out quite so far. And then the last one is just, is there assignment made for the upkeep and maintenance of the welcome signage of Fort Macleod on either side of town?
Yep. Thanks for your question. So the first one with the solar update, I did put some information there just as kind of an update, since we have changed to Alberta Munis for our utilities. So we are seeing an uptick in what we are getting for credits. So that is part of what we wanted to look at when we were looking at our solar. As we've discussed before, our solar is a direct use system. And so the plant itself is using the energy as it comes off. So the credits only come when we're producing more than the plant is actually using. So those numbers are there. And then we also have a graph just kind of showing at a high level what the estimated savings would be on our utility costs, because we have that power to consume before the plant uses directly from the grid. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we are seeing some better credits and kind of with the new utility that we are using, and we're trying to track that a little bit better. But we're also seeing some good production from the solar farm itself. We are getting regular reports on how those things are, or how the panels are working, the production that they are providing. So yeah. The second one, the wilderness parking going around the edges, we haven't got to that yet. There is plans to try and smooth that out a little bit. That was not part of the original scope, and so that will be part of the operations for our facilities team, parks and facilities, to look at that. So that is still in the plans, but we haven't got to that point yet. Just as we're going in this time of year, this is our busy part of year, and so that's where that sits. The upkeep and maintenance, and sorry, I forget where you were. Oh, at the welcome signs. sorry. So yeah, with the welcome signs, we've gone around and I went around and took a look. I took a bunch of pictures of kind of the condition of the signs at both sides of town. I have reached out to the Environment Committee to see if they have suggestions or concerns or what they might want to do. We are looking at some different options, but we haven't decided on anything yet. So that's where we're sitting right now, but we are trying to get a plan for that.
Good, thank you.
Conservations?
Yeah, looking at the incident report, Brennan, I'm curious, and I recognize that the percentages include interactions with residents. But I was a little surprised to see that 63% of our incidents were in the office relative to the other 3 departments. So what would constitute an incident in the office? I'm just curious, like, do we have an issue there with threats, or like what is driving that number of 63%?
So the pie graph that you're looking at with the 63%, so incidents would include incidents and near misses and hazard identifications. So that wouldn't necessarily be somebody getting hurt. That could also include there was a hazard, we looked at it, we dealt with it, and moved on. So I don't think there's a concern there. One of the things we are looking at and that we're pushing towards is trying to have what are called leading indicators, and so that would be your hazard identifications and those kinds of things. And so we are pushing to try to get more of that reporting. And so those would be positive things that we're recognizing a risk and we're trying to deal with it before we actually get to a near miss or an incident. So that is something that we are pushing, and we are trying to encourage all our departments to input more of those situations to encourage them to be thinking about the risks of their job and what they can do about it.
So you're suggesting that this isn't really a reflection on the number of incidents, but more the number of reports that are being filed for incidents? Am I correct in that?
Yes, and reports are inclusive of incidents where somebody actually gets hurt, but also just good catches or recognizing hazards.
I'm just very surprised that Public Works is 6% and the office is 63. That just seems like those numbers should be reversed, but that's just me.
Yep, and I guess my thought would be it is easier for the office to sit down and say, we saw this hazard, I'm gonna write it up and I'm gonna put it in the system. We're encouraging our other departments to do that, but they do see things out there on a regular basis that they handle and move on with. There is a fair bit of administrative work to safety. And so asking administration to do that work can sometimes be an easier sell.
All right. Councilor Monteith, did you have a question?
You talked about the 93% reduction in water. That really doesn't amount to much money in terms of budget, does it?
I believe it was going to be around $3,000 a month in potable water.
Is that extra cost we're saving, not what we produce and we say has a market value?
So I'm not sure on your question there.
Well, when we have a plant and all the fixed costs, we still have that even if we reduce consumption. So all we're really losing is the variable costs. And I'm just thinking that that probably isn't a huge number.
Yes, so we're not, essentially what we're doing is we're using water to push through our filters and things like that, things that can be used that don't need to be potable water. So we're using that water first, and that allows us to have the capacity of water that we are putting out that is treated, the potable water, that we can use that water for potable water instead. So yeah, it is, if you think about it in those kinds of savings, we are opening up our capacity and what we do have available for our potable water.
And saving on treatment costs. All right, thank you for all the reports. I think those are always very helpful. And CEO Burdette, you want to sum them up? No. Good.
We'll see if my microphone works. Awesome. Yes, thanks, Mayor and Council. I'll keep mine brief. Just to touch on a few items from my quarterly report. It was conference season this spring. Went to try it out in a couple new conference in Kananaskis. Tough place to have a conference, but it's a great leadership opportunity. Good opportunity to connect with other municipalities. Also the Local Government Administrators Association Conference. Great value for CAOs and make good connections. One of my highlights for this spring was a meeting that we had with the senior admin. We called it an organizational structure kind of / growth planning meeting. And we are going to have some great deliverables and some conversation with council in the fall with some of the results of that conversation as we look to the future with staff organizational structure, what kind of triggers will trigger, growth or movement or adjustments. And so that was a lot of, it was a great time. We had some really good conversations. Can't wait to bring council in the loop on that. I met with the district officer, the DO with the RCMP in this last quarter with Mayor Brent Fader. That was good. He was willing to answer our questions and be really responsive to some of our concerns. Big highlight is I think for the community in terms of housing with the 51 unit apartment. That's obviously historic in size and capacity for our community. And so we're excited about the potential and what that could do for our community and for housing availability. Glad to see, and some of the stuff's in Brennan's report with the 150 Park coming together. That's a real highlight for our community and for that side of the community. Another highlight that I really enjoyed because I like renovations so much was my tour through the Queens and to see the work that they've done and how they're capturing just little pieces of history and just, highlighting them, and really looking forward to when that all finishes off, and, can't wait to go. It's a beautiful structure and they're doing a really good job. I know it's a lot of work. Other than that, we've had some great conversations with the MD of Willow Creek about the arena and about other things, and our partners there. We love working with them. And done quite a bit of work with the Empress on working out our new lease agreement and some new arrangements there to support the Empress Theater. But if council or mayor and council have any questions, I'd gladly answer those.
Well, thank you very much. Any other questions regarding any other reports, Councillor Ward?
Just a question on the Queens, and I know it's not our business, but have they put out any kind of projected finish dates? Are they on schedule, whatever their schedule is? Do we have any of that information?
Yeah, if I understand correctly, it's the end of the year or early next year. Yeah, so they have a manager hired, which is a big step for them, just to start building the menu and the experience and all that stuff. So if council would like a tour sooner than later, I'm sure we can get you one too. Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll entertain a motion now to accept the administrative report as presented. Councillor Poitras makes that motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And moving on to delegations, of which we have two tonight, and we'd like to start with Kids First Family Center, and we want to welcome you to council tonight, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Thank you for hearing us out. You will have received a letter, and we'd just like to share some more information with you as it's developed. First of all, this is our 26th year in operation, and we've loved serving the community. I think I started with it in 2002, and I make a return visit just because it's such a valuable thing. I'll highlight our mission, first of all, because that's what got us into the position we're in. It's the third page of the handout that you have. And all of those were universal programs for families in the community of Fort Macleod. That was an essential piece, and when our board met, one of the criteria that was going to be put through didn't meet those needs anymore from the provincial government. I put the early years in, and in page 4, there's a significant number of early years for parents of young children who can attend and participate in our programming. And that programming runs 12 months a year. And then we have youth support as well, programs for the youth and the community. And all of these things, again, are a situation that run all year long for children and parents. We also offer one-on-one mentoring, it's called. It's not counseling, because counseling goes way deeper, and we aren't going to go there. And that was one of the things I'll speak to later. But it's mentorship in order to provide children with the opportunity to grow and participate in leadership roles in the programming. One of the other things I'd point out is we do have community partnerships. Previously, we had FCSS funding for programming, but as of when the application for FCSS funding came out this year, we were financially in a position that we did not apply because we had enough funds to carry on the way it was going. That has changed. We also coordinate the good food bags with John's Independent Grocers, and we have quite an uptake from that as well. And as well, we support programming with the Allied Arts. The data that I have on the very last page are all the contacts that we have had with the community and with children. And this is only January to now. So we have had a total participation in our youth programming of 689 contacts with children and parents in that group. We've had 746 participants in our Stay and Play program, and that's an open area with lots of toys and lots of areas. We change the toys and we make it all very much an evolving program for parents. And I think the main great part of that is if I were a parent and I had a 2-year-old at home all winter long, it would be a great place to go instead of just hanging out at my house. So that's what we're doing. I'll update you on 3 things: how our funding issue arose and why it's a big concern. We used to be part of an FRN, and an FRN we were the hub, and then they had spokes out to Pincher Creek, Granham, Crow's Nest Pass, and Lethbridge Family Centers. And what took place was the FRN was designed to support families. And when we got the funding, it allowed us to have significant programming. And it was give or take about $400K a year through the provincial government. And the design was initially so that it would take pressure off social services. Because if you support families before there's a crisis, it's a lot more sensible. So that is why they were funding us to that level. And what took place was we knew a new grant was coming up, and we were under the impression that everything would be similar to this grant. Well, they came in with a new grant proposal. And the new grant proposal was for interventions which were specific and were targeted. And we've never run targeted programs. We've always run universal programs where anybody can join, and that's partly why we were attached to a school, is because people then would come and they would participate in our programs, and all kinds of people came to our programs. Once you make a program targeted and it's intensive and it's things like counseling and things like that, it may work in Calgary. I'm not sold it would work in this community. And the board of our group of Kids First Family Center said, this just is not going to meet our needs. And none of it meets the 4 pillars, which were our goals. So it was a tough decision. It took 3 nights. Everybody went away and thought about it, and went away and thought about it, and then came back and said, either we're going to be fraudulent and we're going to keep doing what we're doing and just make reports up, or we won't be fraudulent and we won't apply for the funding. And sadly, my statement was, sadly, my statement was, I'm not going to jail for that. So one of the things was we decided we couldn't apply for that funding. It didn't meet our needs anymore. So that put us into a new area, and we needed to look at some solutions. So one of the first solutions that we had was we knew we didn't have the staffing that has an expertise in writing grant applications. There's a whole skill in writing a grant application. And if you hit the right words, you hit the right information that the grant funders are looking for, you have a far greater chance of being successful in your grants. So we looked at how we could make that work. And with the assistance of my new best friend, Cassie here, we made that decision. As it stands now, we've located some funds, some applications which we can file. One is a SIF grant, and it can be up to $75,000. And we're hoping, and that application comes out at the end of August. So we got some things in place that we're going to apply for. Again, you never know if you're going to get it or not, but it's one of those things where we are aware that we are going to explore those types of things. The other thing we did was they talk now, we had the Deputy Minister for Children's Services in the community, and she came into our facility and she was enamored with it. She loved it. She thought it was great. Oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Asking us all kinds of questions. Then she asked waiting for the shoe to fall. So how's your FRN application going? And by then we'd already made the decision. We are not ever going to meet that requirement. We said, we can't apply for that. And she said, what, you can't? And we said, yeah, we don't meet any of that, and none of it will fit the government structure you're looking for. Well, things like private counseling and things that would be set up in offices. And if you go over to our facility, we would have to renovate the whole place, and there's no money for renovations even. So it put us totally behind the 8 ball. Then but we applied then to extend any unexpended funds into the fall. And we said, look, you've already expended the funds. Let us keep running what we're doing. And we got a nice letter that said, no, thanks, you can't. You return the funds that you haven't expended as of July 1st. So there will be some funds going back to the provincial government. Then what took place is, so we put together a plan, and you received the letter of our plan. And that was one of 43 letters that went out to the community that said, we need help. Anybody that wants to help, get in touch with us. This is our first presentation. So you get to be our guinea pigs as to how successful we are. And that has been our concern. As we look at it, we have also, we still hold hope that maybe the FRN, some of the applications didn't get approved, and they'll come back with a revised FRN mandate, and we'll be able to apply again. But that's a long shot, I believe. I don't know for sure, but it is something that we could possibly hold out hope. So those are sort of where we're at. We're still running full programs this summer. And as we look at it, we want to keep running. And my personal example is I was in another community for the last years as a principal in Livingston Range. And I asked the question, so what do you do for kids that don't have breakfast? And everybody looked at me like I'd grown a third eye. And they said, well, all kids have breakfast. They have it at home. And Fort Macleod was 25 years ahead of the other community in that there was a breakfast program. Church volunteers came and put breakfast out for kids and talked to them in the morning and found out how their day was. All that really good stuff. Skates were provided for kids to go skating. All the kinds of things that Kids First Family did. I think it's just a very valuable program. I think it's reaching lots of people. The problem is we have a cash issue right now. And now I'll turn it over to my new best friend, Cassie Ducharme from Avail County.
Hi, thanks for having us. I'd like to just start with the financial statements that were included with your packages and also provide some updated numbers as of June 30th that are not finalized but are still being reconciled. If you look at the revenue on the statement of operations, the FRN funding represented 96% of the funding that the center operated or used for their operations, which doesn't leave a lot left now that it will need to be repaid. Looking at the cash as of June 30th, on a total basis, there was $237,000, and they are expecting to have to repay $155,000 of that. It was very disappointing that the extension request was denied, and after speaking with the FRN agent, she said that was not just Fort Macleod, that was a universal decision. All of the extension requests were denied and are being put back to the government to be used in different programming. She also mentioned that upon review of the grant applications that came in of the deadline, there is a gap in the western corridor for the family centers. It wasn't just Fort Macleod, it was also Pincher Creek and Crowsnest Pass are also, there's a clear gap in the FRN services that are being provided there. So they are also in the same boat as us. Looking to our July balances, we have in our unrestricted account 58,000 and 24,000 in our casino account. Our casino account can be used for programming materials and 15% of wages. However, 21,000 out of the 31,000 monthly expenses are wage related for the team that puts on the programming. So we're looking at approximately 2 more months if we keep, maybe 2.5 more months if we keep the current level of staffing available with our current funds. There was a United Way grant application that was submitted that they're still waiting to hear back on. That was for $15,000 that would help cover some of that. We've reached out to them today and have not heard back on if that application was successful. And they are working with a grant specialist now who is going to help with the CIP grant application that's due August 15th and looking out for other operating grants to cover. That's all I had on the number side of things. I'll pass it back to Ian for the ask.
So what we're looking at is any kind of support we could have for staffing. We know staffing is our biggest expense. We can buy a lot of paper mache and activities kids do, but you got to have somebody at the in the facility. Our situation is dire. If we can't come up with any kind of solution, I don't know what we'll do. I think it's obvious there's one way that we'll be going, and that would be to possibly look at downsizing our operation or look at a variety of, I don't know, turning it over to another group that would maybe use the facility as well. But at this point, I'm in conversation with Jeff Perry about the rent being put at bay for a year, but we haven't finalized anything there. We were paying $50,000 a year rent to be over there. So if that's put at bay, that's going to give us a little more breathing room too. So this is where we're at. This is why you received the letter. This is why it's essential that we get our message out there. And I'm open to questions at this point.
Yeah, on behalf of council, we want to thank you for coming today. First of all, I know this is a difficult situation you're in, and it's good to be able to have an open discussion on it. I think there's a number of groups in similar positions. We've written 2 letters, I believe, to the province regarding some adjustments to funding and how that's all working. So this is another one, I would say, that we need to find and try to get to the bottom of. So the ask today, and I know we're heading into summer break and so on, but the ask today, to be clear, was more or less support at one level or another. Is that what we're hearing? Yeah.
Yes, that's our ask.
Okay.
And with whatever support, here's my numbers person.
Sorry, specifically for wages is
Okay.
that the ask goes towards. That's been a harder piece to fund with operating grants. Yeah.
We also have another casino coming up August 11th and 12th, which will fund possibly to the tune of 30,000 or so towards our operating of materials and supplies. So we're less concerned about materials and supplies, mainly concerned about staffing.
So council, I don't know where you want to go with this discussion tonight. I know there's a lot of questions, a lot of unanswered questions. We don't have the answers, obviously. I think the question I had is, has the MLA been reached out to at all? And it surprised
No, we have not. We haven't heard from the MLA. Several of the children's groups have reached out to us from the community, and my recommendation was for them to also contact the MLA as well. The goal is healthy families early, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, there's another number of opportunities, obviously. I think first is to go to the MLA and figure out exactly what's going on and if she even knows about it. Because I think as an MLA, you'd want to know about it. And if something's been changed that she's not aware of that's affecting a number of her communities within her area, I think that should be a place we go to answers first. Beyond that, if there's no answers there, I would hope that the Chamber of Commerce as well could help promote and support the initiative, because I think healthy families means healthy workers, and that makes a difference and impact on the community as well. As a town council, I'm not sure how we go about deliberating on this because it's time sensitive for you, I understand. So you would need an answer, I assume, within the next 2 to 3 months? Or are you talking 2 to 3 weeks?
Sooner is much better than later. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think, like started last council meeting till the end of August. That's where it likely wouldn't be until, unless someone wants to make a motion today. Otherwise, it wouldn't be until the end of August into September before you get a response. Any other thoughts from administration, either CEO Burdette or Director of Community Services?
This is a troublesome position to be in. I know Kids First Family Center has been a pretty solid staple in our community for quite some time. I personally have used it probably back when my kids were a little bit younger. But yeah, we would go there and see the programming. I had no idea what it was. I was like, what do you mean there's this place that you can go to and there's programs and there's things? And yeah, I really quickly saw the value in it. And so it's extremely disheartening to be in this position right now. As far as what the town can do in an instant and now, right? I think there's a bigger conversation to be had, and perhaps with some numbers and some I guess open discussion with council and definitely Chris and myself, and seeing if there's any possibility where there can be something to be done there. We haven't established something as far as something that we can propose to go forward right now, but it would be a real shame for programming to be cut in our community. I know it has a lot of value and brings a lot of value to our community. So I'm a bit at a loss, is what I'm saying. But I think the conversation needs to continue, and we can do what we can.
Well, we can probably deal with a little bit more of direct action under consideration of the delegation. But does anyone else have any questions for the presenter, Councillor Patience?
Yeah, thanks both of you for coming. And yeah, when we first were made aware of this, I just shook my head and went, what is going on? Because we did have two letters at the same meeting, actually. The other one in regards to the women's shelter funding. And I just find it a bit abhorrent that the province funds these, and all these programs now seem to be funneled towards large cities, and they're leaving out the rural content in terms of building communities and providing safe, educated, well-mannered communities. Anyway, my question is really this. It looks to me like you have two issues. One is immediate funding to continue operating, and the other is what are we going to do in the long term, right? So how much of the funding comes from FRN? And so what is the real gap that you're looking at in terms of dollars and cents here?
Over to you, Cassie.
Of the existing funding, so on the financial statements, you'll see the grant line item of 376,000. 373 of that is from the FRN. So under the grant structures, the programming wages were secured with the grant in place. Without having a secured grant in place, that in theory also eliminates the programming positions. So right now, the board is focusing on trying to secure some of the long-term funding, whether it's through FRN round 2, and seeing if that meets the needs of the community and if they would be eligible to apply for that and be successful in applying for that. Or also if it's to keep the universal programming that they have been doing, finding an alternate way to fund that long-term, because coming to the municipality isn't a long-term solution, it is a short-term solution for sure. They have been looking at different grant funding and also what other family centers have been doing for their universal programming, and a lot of it is looking to community partners, like Lethbridge has a similar play structure to what Fort Macleod has, and that's sponsored and funded by one of the realty companies in Lethbridge. And then every year they have a different sponsor that sponsors that program. So that is also a longer term solution that they've been looking at. Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer.
I'm seeking bridging funding at this point because we need the bridging funding to get us into the next round of application for grants. And we know of, for sure, 2 or 3 grants that would put us into the maybe 100,000-ish, that would allow us to keep staff to a level that provides service, but also is spending time sussing out grant possibilities and things like this. Originally, when we started, we were applying for things like the orange juice fund, and they would grant us orange juice. And that's all we were looking for to begin with. But we're a little further along than that. We have more staff, and the programming is being well used. So we're looking at just bridging us to the point where we can find funding to keep running our grant applications and also keep our programs running as well.
So how much do you need? I guess that's what I'm really getting at is if council has a conversation and says, oh, we'll help you out with $5,000 and $5,000 is not going to make one iota of a difference. That's where I'm going is like, what do you actually need and what is the impact?
To maintain a director that would be just pretty much applying for grants and making sure that we have enough coming in is typically anywhere between $6,000 to $7,000 a month. But we're hoping by October we would be hearing positive things from those funders. Like
I think you need about 2 months' wages, so about 40,000 to bridge.
2 months of wages would be for the entire program. So if they're looking at keeping all of the existing programs in place, that would bridge that to the next operating grant if they were successful in it. Getting down to the dire straits, the dire positions, the key position is the executive director, who would then be responsible for connecting with the grant funders and connecting with the community, and that would be about $7,000 a month for that position.
Okay, does that answer your question more or less? Monty, you had a question?
I'm not going to make any comments about the provincial government,
You ready?
but so it seems to me that they're not funding the existing programs in our area. There doesn't seem to be funding for their proposed programs. So basically our whole area is left without the services that Kids First has historically provided. That simplistically correct?
That's not the explanation I have been given. The explanation I have been given is they want to target funding to specific individuals and do that through intensive multiple supports.
So if they're not doing it through you, what group in town is going to do that?
I don't know at this point. I can't. I look around, I don't see trained social workers on the street looking for counseling jobs in the community, but I could be wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. Well, it just strikes me, it's inconceivable to me that they're cutting out the programs, but they're not really replacing it. Like, if they're doing this targeting, whatever, the programs you were providing are now not going to be there. So I'd love to know the logic, and I know you don't have it, but
So we're not going to solve that tonight, I don't think. I think we know what more or less the ask is. Any other questions for the presenters? Councillor Fox?
Is most of your programming run by paid staff, or do you have volunteers that operate the programs as well?
Most or all of the programming is paid staff at this time. It may be something that we look at as a stopgap kind of thing, but we haven't we've just been, everything has happened in the month of May, June, and the first 2 weeks of July. So it's quite a transition for us.
Well, I think we.
Just a short question, if I may. Go ahead.
Also, I was just going to ask, have you thought about partnering with other organizations that run similar programming, such as the library, who uses volunteers to run programs that are very similar to what you have shown here?
Well, that would be our next step if we get to the point where it's so dire that we're done. We would look at how we could possibly support other programs that are doing something similar. And right now, the preschool is housed in our facility, and they pay us $600 a year towards our $50,000 bill with the Livingston Range. So,
Councillor?
I appreciate the position you're in, and I think about, we as a council needing to make a decision as to whether or not we can help financially. I know that for me, it's going to be, I'll need to see what kind of adjustments you're going to make in your own programming and what kind of cost cutting you're going to do, and also the longer term viability of your programming and how you're going to be going forward. A stopgap at this point to continue in the full scale of what you've been doing in light of the loss of almost all of your government funding. I don't think that's a reasonable thing at this point unless you can discover other sources of ongoing funding. And I know that's a terrible picture, but I know that that's something that we're going to need, is how you see yourself going forward in the future. So we need to see some longer term planning and how that's going to fit before we jump in and try to do what the provincial government has chosen not to do.
That sounds good. Did you want to respond to that?
well, I understand the question. I understand the request. To be honest with you, at this point, we are looking at any kind of, if you wanted to look at the application, I can, basically, we got the application in late March. You had the first 3 weeks of April to have it. They didn't let anybody know until the May long weekend whether they were successful or not. Even if we would have applied, you wouldn't have known until May long weekend. They wanted everybody running by June 1st in this new programming and this new model. So that, it wasn't even anyway. I don't disagree with you, Councillor Orr. We could come back with something more, but our timeline is so tight, and we know we've had many meetings and many discussions.
So I think for an action today, do we want to have consideration of the delegation, this portion now? Does council have any recommendations of a motion? I think there's a few opportunities here. Obviously, I would suggest a letter for what it's worth. I think we need to inform MLA officially that something doesn't make sense here. What is happening? Why would you do this, especially to rural communities? After which, I think we can direct administration to work closer with Kids First Family Center on perhaps a bridge program, if that's something that we can do. And best case, we call for an emergency meeting to put something into place if we have to. Yeah. So is somebody prepared to make a motion to that end? Councillor Monteith. And the motion would be to draft a letter and forward to the MLA seeking reconsideration or direction or clarity. Yeah, absolutely. As well as directing administration to work with Kids First Family Center on some form of bridge financing if we need to. Yes.
If I could add a letter as well, just not to the MLA, but to the Minister of.
Yeah, we will add that in as well.
Anyway, just, and even maybe the Premier.
Yeah, we've done it a few times. I think it's good to see as many as you can.
I'd like to see the response.
Yeah, no, and yeah, very well. The motion is on the floor then regarding this delegation. Any other comments or debate on the motion? See Burdette.
Just so that administration kind of fully grasps what the motion is, would it be council's expectation that administration works with Kids First to come up with an exact number, it's kind of a plan in this bridging time period, and at which point we'd probably have to come back in a special meeting with a something a
if
little more
required, for
tangible?
sure.
Okay.
I
Councillor
might
Bishop.
suggest, Ian, that you guys also send a letter to your MLA and the Premier. I think coming from you is very important. If I was a minister and the organization itself hadn't contacted me, it would decrease the validity in my eyes. So I would highly suggest that you and your board also send a letter.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, obviously as accountants, I'm sure they were concerned when over 90% of funding comes from one source. I think there's always a note on the financial somewhere stating that's a concern. But yeah, I think that's an obvious with a lot of nonprofits for sure. All right, the motion's on the floor. Then I will call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, and wish you and your team the very best. All right, we are running a little behind, but we'd like to invite Natural Capital Corporation to be able to. I think administration will set you up with a mic on either side. Miranda, where did you want them? Here's good. We have another chair. Pleased to meet you, Garth. And we'll make some introductions right away. So we have 2 mics. Yeah, simply push the talk button. The red light will light up and you're good to go. I will, on behalf of the town of Fort Macleod, we want to welcome you tonight. And we look forward to hearing from you. And soon after your presentation, we'll make a motion to go in camera and we'll have some additional conversation in camera. So the floor is yours and we look forward to hearing from you.
First of all, I'd like to say thanks, Brent, for bringing us down, having us meet with council, and thank you for all entertaining us tonight. We know that we're not going to come to any decisions in a short presentation tonight because there's a lot of things that have to go along with this program, which is considerably different than anything that's been brought to your table to date. So I'd just like to run through this initial outline that tells us a basic about the program. I don't want to get into the financial details until we're in camera for various reasons that nothing is written in stone there, so we don't want to make any statements that can be misconstrued. I'd like to say that Natural Capital Corporation was developed to change the paradigms initially in development, in science, and then determined in infrastructure, where we have a funding gap, which we just heard about just previously with the people that were here. This extends through all aspects of our society, but mostly evident in rural development. Wherever I go in the world, it seems that the cities always get the dollars at election time, and rural communities are promised but never get anything, and they have to do it on their own tax base. And unfortunately, that's never enough. And if you wanted to increase that, the community doesn't want you to spend their money on debt. So it seems that we're in a never-ending cycle of entropy, where we're not building up these communities, and the community children are leaving and going to the big cities to find better things to do. So the program first starts out from a position of environmental regeneration, empowerment of communities, and the institution of a sustainable circular economy within the local community. And when I talk about a community, I normally mean a county and all the communities that are within it. But that doesn't mean that it can't be a commercial community or a First Nations community or one town by itself. I want to go down. Next slide. I don't know if do you all have this in front of you? Okay. I'm looking at the screen and you guys are looking at the outside. Okay, so first of all, in Alberta, of recent, our Minister, Mr. Williams, Honorable Dan Williams of Municipal Affairs, has come out with an announcement saying that there's got to be a different way for us to fund infrastructure programs. And they've set up a think tank to find the right solution. And I'm going to be not arrogant, but confident to say that this program is the ultimate solution for rural development and environmental regeneration. The infrastructure deficit that we have is quite evident. Not just roads and bridges, but in our energy, water, and food security circumstance, wastewater treatment, parks, community, all social housing and hospitals and nutrition centers. And I'm sure you guys have a wish list an arm's length long of projects that you'd like to put into place, but you just can't seem to get it there. And I'll use an example of Rocky Mountain House, where I asked the mayor, I said, what's your wish list? He said $97 million. I said, when did you start that? In 2013. How many projects have been done? And the answer was none. This program is designed to build that infrastructure at no cost and no repayment requirement. It's important that we understand the principle of no debt, which is involved in this program. Next slide. We build what's necessary for our work, and we start with an Earth Park. An Earth Park Environmental Agricultural Research and Technology Hub is the foundation where NatCap builds all its enterprises on top of that, whether it be alternative energy production, whether it be water filtration and treatment, or whether it be our food mills or our aquaponics programs, or any other, our pellet mills, for example, any other environmental technology that might need incubation would also be done there. Our Natural Sciences Lab is built there. The laboratory produces all the biologicals and natural fertilizers that replace chemicals in agriculture. And it's the centerpiece of our whole program, although it's after the fact. The whole program is built on regenerating natural soil, and we have to do all these other things to be able to do that. So we bring forward the technology, we bring forward the finance and the model by which it can be done. Next slide, please. The alternative energy system that we use is a hydropyrolysis system. It is the state-of-the-art technology that eliminates all wastes or carbon materials in 100% conversion to product, which would be syngas and pure carbon. 1,000-ton-a-day facility. This is a modular facility. That reactor that you see there produces 1.25 megawatts of electricity, if you wanted to use it for electricity. In a standard plant of 1,000 tons a day input, we would produce 40 megawatts of electricity, 75 million gallons of fuels, no carbon, no sulfur fuel, or 60 million kilograms of hydrogen, or a combination of all, depending on the circumstance. And I just want to, I have to go back to the first slide about the social infrastructure. We don't determine what that social infrastructure is. You folks determine what's your business. What you need is what you're going to send in a shovel-ready project for to the council, if you like, or the trustee board of the public-private partnership that we would strike with you. And the determinations made on which projects are done are made by that board, so that we can avoid the appearance or any way appearance of corruption involved in anything. And I say these in general terms. I'm not speaking about your community, but wherever I go, I see it, and especially today with Kearney, I see it all over the place. So we have to protect the community and our assets as well as the people from that, and this program does that succinctly. Next slide. The second part of our technology is a pellet mill that takes all the MSW or other wastes, animal waste in this area is pretty heavy duty, and we just take it in and it becomes a waste treatment facility for the factory farms. We can use coal in this system. We can use pet coke in this system. We can use garbage in this system. So any industrial waste, any waste at all that's carbon-based can be put through our machine. And then we use the pellets for the energy production. Next slide, please. So when we talk about the program capital, our portion of it, which is 75% of it, builds the energy plant. In this case, we just use the hydrogen plant numbers. Cost of that plant is $425 million US. It produces 60 million kilograms, and it has a net present value of $5.5 billion before it's even built. The pellet mill, of course, is a necessary function of energy production, and the mills are built to the size of the plant, which is based on the needs of the community. So if we're going to produce electricity and fuels, what does the community already consume? And then we try and replace that to offset imports. The cost of production here is so low that we can sell you for $1 a liter your diesel fuel and your gasoline forever and a day, and you never have to ever pay more for it, other than for inflationary increase. It takes about 24 months, I guess, at the maximum to build these facilities. So once we have approval of finance, everything goes forward immediately. Particularly the social infrastructure can start immediately after the funding begins. The plant takes a couple of years to get in full operation. Next slide, please. So when everybody wants to know, well, what's it cost and who pays for it? Well, that all depends on how big we make this thing. When I looked at your capital projects budget, I saw 25 million for the next 5 years. What we're talking about here is 25% of the program capital being delivered for infrastructure development within the community. So if we're 550 million for our technology, that's 75%. So let's bump that to 600. That means 25% more than that would be another 150 million on top of that, which would be delivered to the community as their projects become shovel ready. So the model is 75% for the energy, 25% for the social infrastructure that you bring forward. Next slide, please. We support our programs globally with the new issuance of sustainably linked green bonds. You may have heard of these green bonds before, and somebody might say, well, bonds are junk. Well, ours are secured and soon to be insured. So that's how we fund our projects. We also use private capital, private equity capital, to fund 75% of the projects. So we work with the community's aspect of 25%, and we work with our funding of 75%. The finance, if any, is subordinated to the bonds. So the bonds have ultimate security in every case. We can do this in public-private partnerships, or we can do it in joint ventures with industry. It all depends on the community's status, what they want to do, if they want to accept and adopt the programs. And we provide all of the work other than for the infrastructure development, which is put out to tender as normal with every other infrastructure program. Recently, I heard on the way down that there's a plan to maybe move the highway and all that kind of stuff, pretty expensive joint venture that you're going to enter into with the province, most likely to get some funding. Our job is to bring the province and you guys together with that infrastructure package and maximize the funding that's available for you without even the provincial input. So the program is designed that the community becomes self-sufficient and not required to go to the government for any help. Next slide. Okay, now I shortened this up because I didn't want the next part of it, which is a detailed discussion of that finance, to be on the next part of the agenda. So basically, I'll just recap. We're here to provide the capital that heretofore has not been provided for the development of social infrastructure for the community. My request when we're spending that money on infrastructure is that we build a sports complex of grand nature so that we can have the kids a place to go. And when I heard this presentation before me, all of the social programs that you want to put into your community are paid for by that infrastructure fund. It's your discretion as to what you pay for it. So instead of spending 25 million in the next 5 years, I want you to spend 250 million. Now, you never have to pay it back. And there's no investment required for expenditure of capital. It costs no money for the community to partake. So I want to get into more detail about that, but I'm going to bite my tongue now, and then I'll open it to questions in the next session where you guys can drill us hard on.
Yeah, I think that's good. Thank you, Garth, for making that presentation. I don't know if you want to introduce your team before we go into camera, and then we can maybe...
Yes, I would like to. Mr. Callum Sears, would you take a stand? Callum, you might know Callum. He's from around here, out in Stavely country. He's got a big ranch out there in the foothills, and Callum is our regenerative grazing and livestock management director. Sure. Jeffrey McMullen is our business development officer. Jeffrey's, this whole team is new. Everything is new that you're hearing here. I've spent the last 25 years bringing us to the table. There's more of us, but they're not here. There's scientists and engineers, people with forestry experience, with oil and gas experience, all coming as things progress. They'll all come on board and to execute the companies. I should say that Natural Capital is the parent company. You might treat it like an investment bank, private although, and it has 6 operating companies underneath it that affect every part of the environment or the economy: energy, water, food, construction, development, resources, natural resources, potash, and those kind of things. Our agricultural wing, regenerative agriculture, and so on. So.
Oh, that's pretty good. And I think Yeah, Hubert, did you think we go in camera now then? Or does anyone have any initial questions before we go in camera? I know what was been presented is completely, like, it would be hard for most, for me to understand. It's a lot that you presented. And
Yeah,
it's
well,
a
it's
lot
gonna
to
get
try to-
worse. But we'll have lots of time. The one thing I don't want to do is hurry anybody or rush anything.
Sure.
So this isn't going to be done in one meeting.
No,
It's going to take several discussions
Oh, I'm sure it
for
will.
us to, if you want to. And I think after our next session, we'll be able to understand it's not as complicated as it might be. And we'll be able to round out your questions and answer them succinctly.
And if anyone had any questions, they can go to your website and like from the public side. For sure.
As well,
Yeah. Yeah.
well. But I'm certain that we can, get to some pinpointed questions here that may
Sure.
inspire us to have another meeting.
Okay.
That's my whole intent, is to the next meeting.
Well, I think for now we'll call for a motion to go in camera, and then we'll have some further discussions. We also have another presenter coming in camera, so we won't have a lot of time tonight to get into detail, but at least we'll have some opportunity to ask get some more information from you.
Yeah, and as soon as we're in camera, I'll just take another 5 minutes, and then you guys can question and
Sure.
answer, and we can be done in 20, 25 minutes, half an
Sounds
hour.
good. So I'll call for a motion then to go in camera. Councillor Patel makes the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? And motion is
Did you get-
carried. And we want to thank everyone online, and have a good night.
Did you want to take a 5-minute break? You guys have been